The funeral, steeped in silence, solemnity, and centuries of tradition, was meticulously planned. In the Vatican, every gesture is choreographed, every presence sanctioned, and every movement has its preordained place. But at this solemn moment, something utterly unexpected occurred, something unforeseen by any ceremonial script, unbroadcast by any official transmission, something that left the world holding its breath in anticipation. On Wednesday, the day of Pope Francis's funeral, amidst cardinals, bishops, world leaders, and thousands of faithful, a solitary figure emerged from the crowd. She was not on the guest list, nor was she part of the meticulously orchestrated ceremony. Yet, she entered calmly, with a quiet determination, as if invisible to the eyes of protocol, but palpable in the collective emotional intensity. It was a nun, Sister Geneviève Janin-Roux, a woman of simple habits, with a slow, deliberate pace, carrying an inexplicable aura that no one could comprehend at that moment. Without seeking permission or following prescribed paths, she moved down the central aisle. Eyes began to turn towards her, whispers intensified. The Swiss guards hesitated for a moment, and the official broadcast camera momentarily deviated from its planned route. Still, she continued to walk until she stopped. Beside the coffin where Pope Francis's body lay, Sister Geneviève stood silently, hands clasped in prayer, as if in that moment no one else existed but her and the deceased pontiff. No words were uttered, no tears were visible, yet an overwhelming emotional intensity permeated the surroundings. The Vatican, accustomed to impeccable precision, was caught off guard by this unpredictable gesture, a gesture that was neither political nor symbolic, but profoundly human and intimate. No one attempted to stop her. No one interrupted her prayer. Perhaps it was because all those present instinctively realized that something far greater than a mere breach of protocol was unfolding. It was a farewell that transcended formalities, a bond no rule could contain, and a silent message that declared, I had to be here for faith, for friendship, for love. The scene seemed to suspend time in the Vatican. It was a moment etched not in words, but in the raw power of a human gesture. She delivered no eulogy, offered no floral tribute, and posed for no cameras. Yet, the act of this nun, approaching Pope Francis's coffin, spoke louder than any official homage. It was a simple, yet profoundly symbolic gesture. Sister Geneviève Janin-Roux didn't merely break Vatican protocol. She broke the silence between the human and the divine. She crossed a boundary to do what her heart compelled her to do, to bid farewell to someone who, for her, was not merely the head of the church, but a brother in faith, a spiritual friend, someone with whom she shared something the world might never fully comprehend. But Pope Francis, undoubtedly, would have understood her act. Throughout his pontificate, he taught that true love doesn't follow scripts, that living faith isn't bound by formal guidelines, and that the purest gestures emanate from the heart, not from liturgy. Francis always rejected clericalism and the coldness of rules that stifle the soul. He said, "Mercy is the name of God." And Sister Geneviève, standing silently beside his body, embodied this very essence, an act of mercy, tenderness, and devotion. Even if not everyone understood her act at that moment, even if many considered it a breach of order, she did what she felt Francis himself would have done. And that is precisely why her gesture became so powerful, because it encapsulated everything Francis preached: the courage to love against convention, The risk of condemnation for following one's inner truth, the audacity to break with expectations and live from the heart. The nun's gesture was no ordinary farewell. It was a silent affirmation that faith can still be spontaneous, that spirituality isn't confined by rigid rules, and that even within the most formal church ceremony, there's room for genuine love, a love that needs no permission. Observing this, one inevitably wonders, how often do we hold back from acting due to fear of public opinion? How often do we suppress our feelings because we are bound by protocols and formalities? Sister Genevieve didn't ponder such things. She simply acted, and in doing so, reminded all of us of Francis's repeated emphasis: the gospel is not a theory, it's a way of life. Her gesture wasn't planned, it was lived. In the Vatican, where everything is controlled, timed and scrutinized, where every step is sanctioned and every presence anticipated, where security is provided by the traditional and rigorous Swiss Guard, known for their unwavering adherence to protocol, something unprecedented occurred. Sister Geneviève Jeanenroux approached Pope Francis's coffin, crossed the invisible line separating the sacred space from the crowd, and no one attempted to stop her. No guard detained her, no official blocked her path. She simply walked, and even more astonishingly, remained standing there silently, with an expression of profound reverence. Beside Francis's coffin, she seemed not only authorized but also expected, because what transpired in that moment is something that even the strictest protocols cannot contain: the manifestation of true love. The guards perceived it not as an intrusion, but as a gesture of love, a gesture that spoke for itself. Meiwam. And in that moment, duty yielded to humanity, rules to emotion, and formal instructions were superseded by something not taught in barracks: sincere passion. Sister Genevieve lacked the coveted pass, the cherished entry into the world of solemn ceremonies. Without formal authorization, she carried something far greater: a history, a profound connection, a spiritual intimacy. No strict rules or uniforms could stem this tide of emotion. Pope Francis tirelessly preached that the human heart must transcend soulless bureaucracy. He urged the Church to be a haven of mercy, not merely an institution where love could express itself freely, even in the most sacred places. And now, before the eyes of the entire world, this lesson materialized. The nun's appearance at the coffin became a living reminder of what Francis had preached until his last breath. Rules are important, but love is always paramount. Rarely do the Swiss Guards show hesitation, but this time they wavered. They understood, they felt, that in that moment they were more human than soldier. Their gazes conveyed silent permission. Let her remain. And she remained. For true love needs no permission. It enters, it touches, it stays. Even the ancient walls of the Vatican give way before it. She appeared like a soft shadow amidst the solemn formality of the funeral. Silent yet resolute, carrying a presence that silenced even the strictest protocols. But who was this nun who dared to approach Pope Francis's coffin in the very heart of the Vatican? Her name was Sister Geneviève Jeanenroux, and few knew she was no mere stranger. For many years, every Wednesday, without fail, Geneviève found her way through the discreet corridors of the Vatican to meet with him. These were not formal encounters or diplomatic receptions, but conversations between kindred spirits, between two people who viewed the world through eyes of compassion. Geneviève was a woman of vibrant faith. Her work wasn't confined to grand pulpits and church events. She found her calling in the alleyways, on forgotten streets, in the humble homes of Italy, where rejected women, marginalized individuals, and young homosexuals carried the open wounds of alienation. She embraced them with open arms. While many closed doors, she opened her heart. While speeches condemned, she listened attentively. While others said, "You are a stranger here," she replied, "You are loved here." And this is precisely what united her with Francis. The Pope, who challenged the Church's entrenched traditions, not only knew of Genevieve's mission, but also supported her, listened to her, and inspired her. Their conversations were not constrained by protocols. They were meetings permeated with trust. They reflected deeply on what it meant to be the Church beyond marble walls. Therefore, her presence at the funeral was not an intrusion, but an act of love, a farewell between two souls who understood each other without words. Genevieve never sought fame or the spotlight, but on that day, she could not remain apart. She could not say goodbye from a distance, because her history with Francis was built not on hierarchy, but on affection, on dedication to the forgotten, on love for those unseen by others. And perhaps that is why no one stopped her, because there was something in her gaze that even the guards understood. It conveyed that she was part of Francis's true story, not the official one, but the most vital one, the spiritual. At first glance, it seemed merely a gesture, a nun by a coffin, in silence, reverence and peace. But for those who see with the eyes of the heart, what transpired that morning in the Vatican was far more than a mere formality. It was a message. When Sister Genevieve Jeanneroux stood beside Pope Francis's body, she didn't just break protocol, she shattered a facade and exposed the essence of what Francis represented, a new, more human way to live faith. She uttered no words, yet her silence screamed. It was as if she was saying, "I was with him, I knew his essence, and now I am here to honor the man, not just the office." And this deeply moved all who witnessed the moment, because this simple gesture standing beside the Pope carried 1,000 invisible layers. It was a gesture of love, gratitude, friendship, and farewell, but it was also a gesture of resistance against a system that often tries to turn faith into rigid dogma, a system that forgets the gospel was born in the streets, not in opulent halls, that forgets a touch is worth more than a title, and that genuine presence is more powerful than any ritual. Genevieve, without uttering a single word, reminded everyone of what Francis had tried to teach for years. The Church should be more heart than institution. Gestures mean more than ceremonies. An act done from the soul is worth more than 1,000 speeches without love. The scene seems simple: a coffin, the sacred silence of a funeral, and a nun quietly approaching. But few realized that it was not only death being mourned there, but also life being celebrated. When Sister Genevieve stood beside Pope Francis's body, something invisible took hold of the atmosphere. It was not sadness, not pain, but a presence that arises only when life refuses to be forgotten. And in that moment, time seemed to stand still. And this is what most astonished those who observed, because funerals usually signify an end. But this one, for an inexplicable reason, brought to mind a beginning, of seeds, of Francis's gestures during his life, of his ability to look at others with mercy, of his courage to confront outdated structures, of his voice that always prioritized the small. The nun's presence became a vibrant reminder of the enduring power of the spirit. The physical shell may depart, but the life it generated cannot be contained. That life loudly asserted itself in that moment, manifesting in Genevieve's courage, in the guard's silent reverence, in the stirred gazes of those who witnessed the gesture, and above all, in the spiritual echo left by Francis, who did not seek regalia, but unfailingly bore his cross with simplicity and dignity. On that day, death did not claim ultimate victory, for the nun's act spoke louder than any words. It cried out in the silence, proclaiming to the world, his story continues. Francis's faith proved to be alive and active. This is why, even in the sorrowful hour of the funeral, there was no sense of emptiness. Her presence was distinctly felt. There was no feeling of conclusion, only continuation. It is likely why no one impeded Genevieve's actions, for everyone subconsciously understood that her act was not a farewell, but an affirmation, a testimony before the entire world that the legacy of a good person does not vanish with their physical departure. It spreads like seeds, sprouts, and inspires those around them. And at that very moment, in the heart of the Vatican, as everyone froze, awaiting the silence that would mark the end, life burst forth and spoke louder, reminding, not always are the most important lessons delivered in grand speeches. Sometimes they come in silence, permeate through the crowd, touch the most intimate corners of the soul, and compel us to rethink conventional notions. This is precisely what happened at Pope Francis's funeral. A nun, her gesture, and a message that could not be ignored. What did this episode teach us? It showed that true love requires no formal authorization. It doesn't follow a pre-written script, but obeys the heart's command. And this, in itself, is a more valuable lesson than any precept. We saw that there are moments when compassion speaks more convincingly than the dry rules of protocol, that there are actions that defy logical explanation but resonate within the soul. What the nun did was not a display of disrespect, but a tribute of profound love and admiration. It was an act of courage, dictated by sincere feelings. We became convinced that faith, when it is authentic and alive, is not confined to the walls of churches. It manifests in actions, in choices made, in the willingness to take risks, in unwavering fidelity to truth, even if it means stepping outside conventional norms. We also realize that the legacy of individuals like Francis does not vanish with their passing. It continues to live and multiply in such gestures, inspiring others. It spreads within every person who chooses the path of love, care, and acceptance, even when the world around calls for the opposite. And perhaps the most crucial lesson is that spirituality is not fear, but boundless freedom to live in accordance with one's convictions. It manifests in actions that do not seek recognition, but leave an indelible mark on people's hearts. What emotions did this scene evoke in you? Do you consider the nun's act a display of disrespect or a sincere expression of love and devotion? Your opinion matters. Share your thoughts on this symbolic gesture in the comments below. If this video made you reflect, please like it so more people can see this message. And if you've read to the very end, it means that deep down, you too believe that love speaks louder than any words. May blessings be upon your life.